welcome to The Boss. I'm here this afternoon with Mr. Bruce Barnes and Carl over here from the NAACP. They both help a lot with the community. Bruce has been with the government and has been working so much for the state of Texas for so many years. And Carl over here has been for 8 years with the NAACP.
Yeah.
Total trooper, assisting people who need help in the area that are struggling economically to meet the needs for their family members in their homes. Today, we think it's really important that we want to talk about subjects that matter when it comes to one, education, which is a subject that really matters to people here in the state of Texas and around the country, and also healthcare. And those two subjects can come together sometimes also whenever there's just not enough budget to meet those needs, and the NAACP comes in and really helps out when there's just not a lot to do there. Mr. Bruce, what can you tell me about the importance of the Texas public education, and how can we compare the Woodlands school education, which is considered one of the best in the state of Texas and in the country, and how we can compare it to surrounding county schools that are just a complete different entity?
Well, in the Montgomery County, we are in the Woodlands that have a very large income part. Okay, the rest of the county has been rural for so many years that it's just being developed. So there are school systems around in the northern part that do not have the same facilities and teachers that the Woodlands have, and we would like to make that equal in the county and in the state also, so that we don't have just one. We don't need wealthy citizens in these schools going to college and our other citizens not being able to go to college because of some education. So I think it's very important that we have enough funding, that we have teachers that have a lower number of students involved in their classrooms, because that's how they get across to people and get their education down. So
yes. So basically, what you're saying is that whenever I look at the information that we have from our governors who are running for the next 4 years, which is really going to determine how our state is going to be, how our state is going to turn out with the education department, and most importantly, how the children are going to be affected. The children are the future of the country, and here, as I'm reading, it's all on Google, and it can all be verified, and I will be more than happy to post it on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, and make sure that we can put a link on YouTube so you guys can have access to it. But on here, it shows that Mr. Greg Abbott is proposing and cutting $5 billion in Texas public school fundings, and without any warning to legislators. So somehow or another, it says here that could violate the Constitution. How do you think, if a lot of teachers already have questions and concerns, and parents have questions and concerns of the future of the children, how do you think that may affect children and the parents and the teachers particularly, because they're the ones that have to give the classes and provide education to the students? How do you think that will affect the education system in the next 4 years and the future of the pre-boomers, millennials, the pre-millennials,
and post-millennials?
Right?
Yes.
How do you think that will affect everybody?
Well, I think that we have to have education here, because right now we have a lot of people coming into this state because we can't, or we don't have qualified people coming. So they're educated in other places and then they come to Texas here. So we need to educate our people so they can get the jobs that other people have been taking. I believe that Mike Collier has a plan that he can fund the school system and a lot of other things by manipulation of where the money goes. I believe he has found like $15 billion that can be used without raising any taxes. So if we've got the will to get these school teachers and get them funded and get more here, because we've got to find those. I think this is very important for this country, or the state and the county, to educate our kids here and fund them properly.
So, Carl, what do you think about this subject? Here it says that, I mean, I lived in the Woodlands for about 3 years, okay, and the public education in the Woodlands is considered one of the best in the country. But here we have written, and it's provided by the Texas government, that Texas is actually considered 41st in the nation. So how can we educate the voters out there, because it's really going to impact mostly because the government is by the people, for the people, and what's elected in this country is by the people. So what information can you give them to be able to educate them better, to know how to better elect their officials, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, based on their beliefs, morals, and values?
Well, you know, it's so important that, first of all, you give the teachers the tools that they need. So many teachers today have to go in their own pocket and buy supplies for their room. I serve as a watchdog at some of the CISD schools, and I hear teachers talking about, well, you know, don't destroy this because this came out of my pocket. You know, we have a lot of schools also that's closing down because they're not getting the funding. I happened to be reading an article this morning about the Texas Education Agency, a lady by the name of Cynthia Dunbar, and she made a statement that sending students to public schools is like throwing them in the enemy's flame. So when you have people who don't really support public education, that is a problem. You know, so I would tell everyone that we need to first of all, don't let our governor cut the funding for public education, because education is so important. We need education because there's a pipeline. We don't want that pipeline to prison. We don't want that pipeline to get bigger. You know, when children are uneducated, it leads to prison. You know, we know that there are more prisons than public universities in Texas right now.
Of course.
You know, everything. So we need to look at all. There's so much going on. It's, to me, you know, education is important. You know, I wouldn't be where I went today if I didn't have education. Those teachers back in the early '60s, they made sure that we studied. They made sure, as a black man in America, you know, even though we didn't get some of the good books, we got old books, but those teachers made sure that those old books, that we studied everything in those books, because they wanted us to make sure that we had a quality education going forth in the future.
Yes, and I mean, me being kind of a millennial, I mean, I'm 32, I never, when I graduated high school, I mean, we had so many hopes and dreams, but we never felt, anybody in my class, did we ever feel like we were not going to be able to accomplish finishing high school because our budget was going to be cut. In fact, our high school was like a college. It was amazing. It was like a university. We had even the ability to go with contractors, if you wanted to be an engineer or an architect, to go with contractors and actually learn to build with them. So it would be very unfortunate if that's the proposal, depending on what you believe should be it for you, the future of your children. You know, you can either go for one side or the other, but hopefully, you know, you choose the right future for the children of the United States, for the future of the country. You know, one day, you know, people who are enough are going to have to hand down the keys to the pre-millennials. So hopefully we go in that right direction, right, gentlemen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So the next question, I guess, would be not just school. So what's the second thing that you think about when you're at your home and you wake up every day and you have to go to school? Well, you have to have your house, and in order to have a great house, you need to also be able to have a great price, a good location, safe, and well, property taxes, right? Because one day you're going to finish paying your home, but you're still going to have to pay property taxes. So, you know, 10 or 30 years down the road, you want to have that peace of mind. Here, this document that was presented by the state of Texas says that, being correct, am I correct?
That's correct.
In here, it says that Mr. Marcuno has voted in the past. So if you go into the Texas.gov or in Congress.gov, you'll be able to find all this information as well. It talks about and shows the voting record of Mr. Mark Keogh. Mr. Mark Keogh, the voting record, and it shows on the voting record that he has voted for property taxes to increase. Is that correct?
Yes, he's voted in. He was in the House, State House.
Okay.
And he voted there that he wants to increase the taxes.
Okay, and then Jay Stittleberg, it shows here that through the government documents, it says that he does not want to raise taxes. He knows that we pay a lot of unfair taxes, which I actually have to agree with that, because not because I agree with either one or the other, but because when I first moved to Texas, it was really cheap to live here. Oh my goodness, I loved it. I was like, oh my God, Houston, Texas. It's like one of the biggest cities in the country, and a 4-bedroom home in this area of the Galleria, $1,400, 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths.
Yeah.
How have you seen it changed in the last 4 years? What can you guys tell me about it?
Well, you know, times are changing, first of all. The cost of living is going up. When you're talking about raising property tax, we have some people living from paycheck to paycheck. And a couple dollars raising their property tax can really affect them. You know, so you have to be very careful when you do a budget, that you think about those who are wealthy, but you're also about those who are not wealthy. And that budget needs to be developed to make sure that everybody can participate in the American dream. And that's what it's all about. We all have an opportunity to participate in that American dream, you know, that we can go to work from 8 to 5 and come home and enjoy that home that we took years to build, and got to worry about being priced out of our home because of high-priced property tax. You know, so that's what I think about the property taxes. You know, we need property tax. You know, because one thing, property tax funds our education system today, and without property tax, you know, the system already is being drained. So if you take away property tax, you know, who knows what happened to our education system?
Right. And I mean, Mr. Bruce, you are a pre-baby boomer, sir. You've
Yes.
seen a lot of taxes fluctuating. What can you tell me about this?
I see that Houston has been expanding for years, and they don't zone, and people have just been going further and further out into the country. Now they have, well, in the past they've gone to Fort Bend and out Highway 59. So now they're expanding up into Montgomery County. And the Woodlands was one of the first places, which is an ideal place to live. And so we had a lot of people coming up here, which expands the tax base. And they came up here and they had more money, so they could pay more for their houses, which means their property taxes went up, or the tax could stay the same, but their assessment on that house went up. So in effect, people were paying more in taxes. I would like to say one thing about housing, and with the house, it is so important that people have used their house and buying one, being able to get one. Therefore, they don't have to pay rent. They are building equity into their house. It's one of the main investments that they do have. And once it's paid off, they can pass it along to other people. So it's very important that they are able. The housing prices have been going up, and therefore there's less affordable housing for the middle class.
And what makes prices go
others.
up then, typically? Taxes?
A lot of people coming into the county and more demand for those houses as they spread up here. So the inflation and the demand for housing has made the housing rise here.
And can part of the, apart from the demand when people move here, what usually generates a higher rate in taxes, of property taxes? Is it usually the person who's in charge of administering the tax rates, which would be the judge, or is it just typically the demand?
It's, well, I don't know if it's all demand, but it's in the economy that is growing. The materials for building a house goes up. So instead of buying at 60 cents a square foot on a house, it could go up to $90 square foot.
Okay.
So as new houses come on and they cost more, lower houses that have been here now are valued more because a new buyer coming in, they want a new house at a high price or a lower cost that they can afford in a used house. So that raises all of the values up, which means the tax rate can stay the same and still do that. On the other hand, if you have more people, you have more children. You need more schools. You need more roads. So there's other amenities and utilities, our infrastructure, that has to be financed.
And I mean, we are going to start having more children, right? Because, that kind of swerves into the conversation of anti-abortion, which is really positive for a lot of women because a lot of women are against it and a lot of women are for it. But if that is something that you value and you love, then you also have to think about the education department, and it also falls under your morals, your beliefs, and your values for the future of the children, who will probably, hopefully, we start having more baby boomers, right? I mean, we don't want it to keep that in the past. We need some baby boomers for millennials. Okay, so, education is very important, and not only education for your children to go home, to be able to feel happy, and when you're at the store and not feel like, hey mom, can you please buy me this chocolate, and not be able to buy it for your child, right?
Yeah, right.
Which a lot of people run across at the NAACP. They come in and they ask for help because they're just struggling in these years in our community.
So many people have misconceptions about the NAACP. The NAACP was started back in 1909. It's one of the oldest civil rights organizations. It was actually started by a group of white people and Jewish and a few blacks. The NAACP had its first national office in 1910, and the first president was a white constitutional lawyer by the name of Moorfield Story. And the second president was a gentleman by the name of Joe Springham, who was a Jewish. So the NAACP is about, first of all, we're a nonpartisan organization. Our national board has Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, Libertarians, but we also believe in a right to vote. We also believe that there should not be no discrimination, and everybody should have a piece of the American dream. We have an educational component, a healthcare component, a criminal justice component, environmental justice component, youth organization. And the NAACP here in Colonel, which Bruce is a part of it, we're reaching out to the people in the community. We saying like this is not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's not a Hispanic thing, it's a people organization. And we're looking for people who want to make a difference in the lives of other people. That's what we're about here in Montgomery County.
And what can you say to people who need help? Do they only have to be in Montgomery County just to come to your section? Because there are sections everywhere for the NAACP. It's not just in Montgomery County. How can they reach you if they need any help? For example, if their air conditioner goes off, you guys help them with air conditioners, or what kind of issues do you help people who are struggling economically?
Well, we have conditions. In the past, I have worked with ladies who basically some of the low-income apartments around here who wasn't receiving the service they needed, so we worked with them. I've had people from other counties call me when it comes to criminal justice issues. Basically, a lot of things that sometimes people call NAACP when they just want help. And basically, I do what I can to help them because I don't want to tell everybody that I don't want to help you, And so we're a well-rounded organization, but our main purpose is to eliminate discrimination, whether it be housing discrimination, education discrimination. That's why our main purpose is elimination of racism and discrimination.
Could I say one other thing? They have a scholarship that they give to students here. And they evaluate their writing essays and looking at those. And the NAACP has been, I believe it was 2 scholarships for some years now. So you might want to talk about that.
Yeah, over the last 8 years, we throughout Montgomery County, we have a committee that sends out scholarship packages to all the schools. And over the last 8 years, we've given away $11,000 in scholarships. And we do that by going out, soliciting to some of our local businesses, which, they have been very receptive to us and everything, but but those students really appreciate it. We had one student actually contact us back and told us thank you for what we gave him.
Yes.
So, the United States is the country of humanitarianism. I mean, everybody who comes here becomes involved in some sort of humanitarianism. Or even if you're not before you got here, you kind of have that drive to want to do it because you see somebody do it and it makes you want to do it. It touches your heart. So everybody who needs help, any family member, doesn't matter what area of Montgomery County you are. For this particular one, we're right here in Montgomery County. You can reach him over here anytime you want. Carl, he's amazing. Google it, phone book it, whichever you want. It's going to be on our website. We're going to have all that information on the website where you can contact. It's really important. And all these bases of points are very important. So, one, education. We want to make sure that every single person has education in this country. It's what makes us #1 in the world. People from all over the world come for education here, and so many people would love to have the educational department that we have. A few years ago, I had somebody come from another country. I was involved with a really large organization that brings in people that are leaders from different parts of the world, and they come here through the American government just to see why we're so great and why they're not up to par. And one of the reasons is because, our vice president was from the public school of Indiana, so our education system is very important. So based on your morals and values, today we only got to really speak about Lorena and Stephen, and they're the House representatives. They really matter a lot. So, if you believe we should eliminate the core curriculum of the education department, which is eliminate schools, vote Stephen Toth. You can find his voting records in the government, texas.gov, if not Congress. And then, of course, you'll find Lorena. She's pro-education, and she wants to make sure that you get your health care. Health care is the #1 important subject in the country. If you believe, healthcare should be cut, and Medicare, etc. You have one side, you have values. On the other side, you also have values, right?
Yes.
We have a lot of candidates here that you'll be able to find all of that information. Healthcare is very, very, very important. I actually have one here that I will be able to ask you about, so we can discuss on the education, which will be our last subject. It's based on pre-existing conditions, and a lot of people have pre-existing conditions in the country, and it's SJ Resolution 63, which half of Congress voted yay, half of Congress voted no, so it didn't even get to the House. Okay, it just died, and that just means it doesn't cover, since it died, it won't cover pre-existing conditions. And unfortunately, I love Ted Cruz. He's amazing. I grew up with a lot of Cuban friends. He voted against it. What do you think about that? Because I have a pre-existing condition. So many people have pre-existing conditions. Bruce, so many people in the government have pre-existing conditions. There's 80-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and kids born with diseases. What can you say about pre-existing conditions in our local Montgomery County government?
Well, one of the things that
Carl.
NAACP slogan is vote, our lives depend on it. When you're talking about pre-existing conditions, there are a lot of people out here, living paycheck to paycheck. They cannot afford health care. Some of those people have conditions that if they did get it covered, it would cost an arm and a leg. By eliminating those pre-existing conditions, you're killing people. You're actually killing people and everything. So that's why it's so important that before you vote, that you become an informed voter, that you know the issues. I tell people, just don't vote because your next door neighbor told you to go vote for John Doe. Vote because of what you know. It's important that everybody who walks this, we call this free country, has an opportunity to be insured. We have doctors, we have hospitals, that can basically cure anything that's out there. But those people got to have the right, first of all, to be able to go see that doctor and to go to the hospital.
What do you think about that, Bruce?
I believe it was like 30,000 people that were killed each year because they didn't have health insurance. And in this, in the state of Texas, they have they have not accepted the expanded Medicaid. Expanded Medicaid went to help people buy insurance. By not doing that, lower income people don't have access to health care hospitals. Also, the hospitals that are in some these locations, they don't have the Medicaid patients coming, so they're closing up. And now you have no access to getting health care. So then the Congress of the federal Congress, they voted over 70 times to repeal the health care that people are getting now. And pre-existing, well, now since they haven't been able to eliminate the ACA, they have been picking at it piece at a time. The part about eliminating the requirement for insurance companies to have pre-existing conditions covered means they do not have to provide it, and therefore their costs can go down, and the price of that insurance will go down. When that goes down, then people can buy insurance, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't cover what they needed.
So the next 4 years are going to be determined by education, amongst other different subjects, including medical insurance for the people. Especially these days, there's just kind of like a wave of cancer. And we want to make sure that survivors have the ability to be treated in the future if they've had treatment, especially kids. I mean, I know so many parents who they've told me horrid stories of their 3-year-old surviving, taking 5 years, and now they're 8, to be able to go back to a healthy lifestyle. And ultimately, the rest of your life, you're kind of left with that idea in your head that you don't bounce back and it doesn't come back up in your body, or any other pre-existing conditions that could affect the well-being of your life.
Right.
So, you know, we have here a lot of good things, a lot of things that may affect negatively. Coincidentally, you know, we don't all think the same. I mean, we are a vehicle of entertainment, which I think it's amazing. The radio is an amazing vehicle to be able to make the country fun. You know, we're music, and one of the other things that is music, one of the first things that actually aired was the news. So I'm 32, I'm young, kind of young to some people, but we want to make sure that we get out to you guys and make sure that you guys are well informed and educated. It's very important to get educated. Education, taxes, your home, and medical. Make sure you guys vote for whatever you think is best for you, not for me, not for them, but for you. Is there any other comments that you would like to give?
Please don't vote to take away our health care.
And education.
And education.
Because I have a hard time not believing that, you know, maybe kids might get a little stressed when they find out they're not being funded. So, you know, we don't want kids stressing. One last subject. Texas is #1 in a lot of issues when it has to do with, unfortunately, it's really sad, issues with mental health when it comes to committing suicide. We want to outreach. One of the things that we want to do through the NAACP, and of course the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, I want to bring them out. Hopefully they're willing to come, because we don't want to be one side or the other. We want to hear everybody's voice. It's really important to hear everybody's morals and values. Of course, this is me talking through the documents, but there's nothing better than actually hearing it from them, because it's basically me saying something and not hearing anything from the other side. So we want to make sure that everybody has a voice, everybody hears their opinion, and everybody hears the values, because we are Texas, we're the Lone Star State, and we're just amazing, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else you guys would like to say today?
And I can say that Montgomery County has a homeless coalition of organizations that work together, and they are working on this mental health issue, you know, because they see that as a problem. And lastly, I would just like to tell people to, first of all, go out and vote, but go out and be an informed voter. Back in 2017, Forbes magazine put out an article called The Ignorant Voter, where people actually vote against their own best interests. So be an informed voter, but most of all, go out and vote, because your life does depend on it.
And unfortunately, I learned something really bad, and I grew up here in the U.S., and I never heard statistics kind of bouncing off the record, but we do have an issue in the Woodlands, and I think young people need our help, and I think people need positivity in life and music, and just an outreach. So we're here for everybody. Whether it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat or blue or white or red or pink or green. Everybody's welcomed here, and everybody here, we want to hear what you have to say. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we will be very responsive. We're going to be hand in hand with everybody here, and hopefully we can work something out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you,
so
gentlemen.
glad you're here now.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. And remember, we're on YouTube, so watch anything you want of what we've spoken about and on our live feed. Take care, guys. Long live the
Bye.
United States.